Hello and welcome to Mooney's Mythic podcast, sponsored by Fresh Air. Oh yes, every breath that is taken within this podcast has been sponsored by Fresh Air, coming to you all around you. The deeper the breath, it's all completely there for you, courtesy of this podcast. So keep breathing. Every breath, the deep breath, the shallow breath, the sharp intake of breath, all is a gift. O2, our gift to the trees. Hello, hi, thanks for coming back. As you can see, I'm making great tracks with the whole sponsorship situation. Very good to be sponsored by one of the elements. What more could I ask for? Thank you for liking, thank you for sharing, thank you for commenting. You've got it. I'm really feeling like you've got it. This is my love letter to you. This is my heart's outpouring to you, and it just feels amazing to be received. Yeah, I'm thinking suddenly in this moment, I was thinking about Dawn, my friend Dawn. She's leapt out at me in the car park and was like, I love your podcast. And so that was really gorgeous. Thank you. Thanks for the phone calls and the messages. Thanks for Mitch and Julia and Anna. Thank you so much. My friend Emma called me and she sang, I just called to say I love your podcast. More beautifully. She's got a lovely voice. That was very touching. Chanan says that she hopes I don't find the edit button. There's not much chance of that. So, yeah, you know, it's like, it's a thing, you know, to keep arriving, to keep turning up and arriving and speaking from an authentic place. So thanks for your encouragement and thanks for telling me that it's something that's important for you in your life. That's really great. I had a message from Elizabeth Sarah, who I've done a lot of kind of transformational work with, and she said, I'll follow you to the moon and back. So that was very sweet. Yeah, really, really sweet. But also I've got an apology to make. I'm sorry to Julie, because she was falling asleep listening to the podcast and made a banging noise, which I assume was when I was talking about the errant kids whistling and tapping their feet. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I love to know that you're tucked up in bed with me listening to this and wouldn't want anything to disturb you. So I've been thinking about this thing that's birthing this podcast, and it just brought me all the way back to reading the eulogy at my granddad's funeral a few years ago now, probably about 8 years ago. And I did it, and I was going to sing, but I got like 2 lines in, and the horror on the people's faces was enough to curdle the song in one's bones. So I stopped. But anyway, did a eulogy. And then afterwards, my nan came up to me and she said, I want you to do that at my funeral. And I said, no, Nan, you can't have that. You can't tell me what to say. Oh, yes, that's what she said to me. She said, I want you to say, and I cut her off. I said, no. I put my hands over my ears and said, in only the arrogant way that a young person dares to talk to an older person. You know, she was 80. She needed a good listening to, and I didn't give it to her. Anyway, I said, you need to not ask. You can't ask because it's the life you live that people talk about in that room. You can't tell them what to say. And I was all hoity-toity about it. Anyway, then she got quite ill and I felt really bad. And so when she was better, I said to her, okay, tell me, what do you want to say? I said, if I'm speaking at your funeral, Nan, what do you want me to say? And she said, tell them I love them. I love them all. And that was all she said. And I really feel that when I kind of feel out into the landscape of the listeners of this podcast, I'm just like, I know I'm not in my coffin, but I want you to know that this is my love letter to you all. And I've popped on to the pod today to talk about the Bardic Finals, the search for the Bard of Glastonbury for a year and a day is finally over. The Bardic Finals were last night, and I want to say I'm fresh from the Bardic Finals, but I was thinking that's not quite true. It's like I'm a bit stale, actually. I feel a bit tired and a bit jaded. Oh, but that's just what late nights do for me these days. So I wanted to talk a bit about what all of that is, because it's like, you know, barding, finding the next chaired bard of Innis Witran, the Gorsif, it's all this wrapped in this language that that not everyone knows about. But Tim Hawthorne, who was the first bard, he wrote a piece this morning, and he said that how proud he was of our community, and he said people used to say, "What's a bard?" and now they tell me what they think a bard should be. So that's really kind of heartened me. I remember when I was the bard, he said to me, it doesn't matter what you do in some ways. It's like, it just matters that there is a bard, that there's a continuation of the tradition of bardship on this land. And I feel the rightness of that. So let's break it all down a bit. A bard. You see, the famous bards, they say the famous bard, the first bard was Orpheus, and then they talk about Taliesin. When I say they, I mean, historians. But bardship, for me, is not about writing stories down. And so these stories are ancient, much older than that. In fact, the priestess who wrote down the stories of Inanna's way before that, and I would call her a bard. But there is a book on this land called the Mabinogion, which was a big collection of stories by different bards, and in about the 12th century, different storytellers, singers, different, bard for me is the person who holds the story, who's got the information as well, who might have come from another town and isn't the one who's going to just give you the facts straight away. You have to give them this warm spot by the fire and fill their bellies and know that they're going to tell you about the latest delights and wars and fashions and humour, and they're going to weave it in story and kind of human emotions. They're going to create things on a mythic scale and on a macro scale, and wrapped up there'll be a lot of information within it. Before we had any other ways of sharing this information. So that for me is what a bard is, whether it's a musician, whether a poet, a storyteller. The definition of a bard in the Gorsith, the group of Innis Witran, which is the name for Glastonbury. It means Isle of Glass. So the group of bards of Glastonbury, the definition of bard is one who elevates the word. So like I said before in an earlier podcast, I talked a bit more about the beginnings, about every year the current bard goes to the market cross and announces the theme of this year's Bardic contest, and then you can put your name down and say, okay, I want to create something and present it inspired by that theme. And then there's a trial, and then some people get through to the finals from the trial. And when I went for Bard, it was Wes White who was the Bard, and he announced the theme to be the theme of the tarot, and that we would pick minor arcana for the trials and major arcana for the finals. And I might talk more about that in a later podcast. But there's also, on a Sunday between the trials and the finals, there is a meeting on the Fairfield, which is a field by the Tor, where bards can come and be initiated, different to the chaired bard. They can come and be initiated. They can come and just become part of the group of bards in Glastonbury. And they need to do something in front of two elder bards. The two elder bards just need to have seen them and said, yep, they elevate the word. So you come and you get a really delightful patch, like if you were in brownies. I don't know, Scouts, did you have them? You have to let me know. But in brownies, you'd get these triangle patches on your sleeve when you completed some task or other, and it's a patch like that. And when we were having this ceremony on the Fairfield last week, the current chaired bard, Johanna, she began to tell us about a dream that she had had, that she always associated the word bard with bird now, because she hears the birds conveying so much through their sound, through their language. And that also she dreamed of the tree of life. She dreamed of this great tree which we were part of. And as she spoke, I can't remember her words, but the radiance of feeling, and she began to cry as she was telling us about the beauty of this dream. And then another woman said that she had read somewhere that we all once in our lifetime dream of the tree of life. I haven't had my tree of life dream yet. And I have all the things that I look forward to in the future. I really look forward to having my dream of the tree of life. So this year, 6 people entered the Bardic trials, and because we can have 6 people in the Bardic finals, the judges decided to let everyone through and up their game. It's really gorgeous, you know. You get 10 minutes in the trials and you get 15 minutes in the finals, and you've got another week to work on your piece, and that's what I love about it. I love watching things moving and birthing and rebirthing and changing, and it's a great place to do that. So then we have the finals. Or maybe I'll read to you some of the pieces. I've got them. I asked everyone, and a couple of people were brave enough to let me have their pieces. And I'm not that into reading actually on here. I prefer to turn up and be present, and look, I'm an oral storyteller. That's just how I've always rolled. But I have got some bits and pieces here of other people's writing. So I'm going to read extracts of some of them because one of them's a bit long. Why don't I maybe start with a shorter one? Here we go. So this is from Jessica Ruby Radcliffe, who hailed from New Orleans but's been living in Glastonbury for a while now. And that is one of the things with contesting for the Bard of Glastonbury, is that you have to live in Glastonbury, or at least live walking distance from the Tor. And by walking distance, we have defined that is a day, that you can walk to the Tor and back home again in a day. Oh, I haven't told you what the theme is, have I? Oof, okay. So, at the Market Cross, Johanna, who's the current bard, announced the theme of this year's Bardic contest. And the theme was the Arwen Roar. Oh no, bugger it. Okay, sorry, I haven't got haven't got an edit thing. What was it now? Oh, I know. The Arwen whispers, the Arwen speaks, the Arwen roars. Now, that's not going to mean anything to anyone that doesn't know what Arwen means. So before I read this piece, I'll just enlighten you. Arwen is believed to be the sound of all creation. Some people say it's like, if you do that 3 times, then you're, calling forth inspiration. Some people say it's which is the sound of Arwen. And this guy said on the night, Richard Osband, he said that before it was called Arwen, it was Own. And I must say, I've quite enjoyed owning the Own. So the theme, the Arwen whispers, the Arwen speaks, the Arwen roars, is like this kind of broad invitation, really beautiful, inspired invitation to express in lots of different ways. So this is what Jessica Ruby Radcliffe had to say about this theme. And she sang beautifully at the beginning of her piece, and she sang exquisitely at the end. I am a bard unschooled. I seek the wisdom of the fool, and folly only Arwen's heartfelt rule. I am her servant, and a servant of the word. 2 months ago, I saw it in a dream, how we all serve her when we dance and sing. The bard can only listen and repeat her breath. Her language is the turning of the wheel. Just listen. Whispering, it could be. Speaking, all that is or ever was. Roaring, change, inevitable, all change. Listen. Her bards can serve you laughter and laughing, help you find your deepest tears and face your fears, stir your might to rise and fight, lay you down in dreams and hope we can make it through the night, or fall in love like a moth to light with heaven or earth. And so, dear lovers, listen closely. She is with you. Do your best. Sing your song. Take your rest. And she will gently guide the world to be both good, beautiful, and wise. This is the magic of the bardic art, that Arwen is alive in every heart. Yeah, let's take one of those deep sponsored breaths there. Which reminds me, someone said to me, you're really funny, but I'm not sure that if you're meaning to be. So to clear any confusion around that, I haven't made a joke yet. Except for the sponsorship. I haven't made a joke yet in this podcast, so if you found something funny, I'd love to know. Yeah. So one of the traditions in the Bardic, it's full of pomp and ceremony, There's a lot of mumbling and a lot of stumbling, and it's a raggle-taggle crew, and everyone is welcome to stand up on that stage and contest to be bard. Really, really, really want you to know that it's not an exclusive kind of club. Although there are certain criteria that the judges will look at when they're looking at your piece, and kind of like, being druidic or connected to the seasons might get you a couple of points in here or there. So this is another piece on the theme: the Arwen whispers, the Arwen speaks, the Arwen roars. 3 Rays walk into a bar: Ray Charles, Ray Davis, and Sister Ray. No? Really? You must be joking. Or perhaps it begins like this. 3 Rays walk into a bar. 1 Ray says, "It's so quiet in here." 1 Ray says, "The noise is deafening." 1 Ray says, "How do you measure sound?" And the answer's not a punchline. It's a crack in this clay vessel of space, matter, and time, through which one voice slips and divides to be heard by many ears, all listening at once to the same song and proclaiming, "It's rock music, it's water music, it's the wind chiming, it's the blood boiling, it's spirit levelling up," each according to how their receptive shell is shaped and where it's placed against the vibrating scale. Entertain me again. Walk down any country lane and key your hearing to the piping refrain of birdsong, blackbird, robin, and great tit, maybe waxing lyrical for the sake of it, but their pitch and notes are shifting to issue an advance warning to their hedgerow kin that you are approaching, which is their public service advising, "Stay vigilant and alert at all times." 3 Ways serve behind a bar, as within, go without, all together now. 1 Ray says, "What's a voice?" 1 Ray says, "Who has a voice?" 1 Ray says, "Can you hear us?" In the beginning I am no thing. The bards of old would swathe themselves in silence and darkness in order to find me, seeking the conditions most conducive to vision, a receptive emptiness cauldron cast, renouncing the company of chit-chat, the better to befriend the social necessity of insane inspiration. The birth of a new word so naked that it negates everything known. How does the new word arrive? Deep within, where your breath, your humming nerves, and your heartbeat are the only measure of the limits of sound, except maybe the wind, but that accentuates its treasure. Listen. In self-appointed stillness, doesn't that glint of divine gnosis floating down, fine as swan's down, that wisp of the tip of an angel's tongue, drown out every doubt that it is truth, booming louder than you can shout? And when you are prepared to tear the roof off the hall and tell all, for the new word must be heard at the back through the speakers, you big your voice up with a marshal stack full of public speaking prowess. And I'm there with you, crow-throated, reaching into your gut, pulling that singing catapult string far enough back to project prophecy, to touch the roots of the future already stirring at the back of your audience's unheard mind. What happens then? What happens is that the word leaves you for so many others. It was yours to polish, but never to own. You can hear it howling far away over the horizon and comfort your empty belly like a midwife. What do you do now? That there is always a sweet spot, a Goldilocks drop, between the still small voice and loud empowered one that strikes the balance of my expression. 3 Rays raise the bar: golden sun, silver moon, green earth. 1 Ray says, "I am lion, lording it over the summer savannah's unrest. I am dragon, breathing rightful anger through a crowd of the dispossessed. I am torrent, cleansing thought clear of procrastination." 1 Ray says, "I am dormouse, tiptoeing up the meadow grass. I am fine hairs on your arm, stiffening at the first sign of significance. I am scrape of match head, birthing flame from phosphorus. One ray says, I am clear blue composure. I am the circle that communicates all in all. I am 3 strings beating in sympathy. And yes, I stole that from Kate Bush. I'm 3 voices in one, whispering into silence, roaring into silence, speaking into silence. I am Arwen. Oh, I'm getting shivers all up my arms. Now, I didn't read all of it. I read about 2/3 of it, but that was Kat Lupton's blinding winning performance. I mean, I didn't do it justice at all. She was fantastic, and really hail the bard, hail our new bard, Kat Lupton. I'm sure that you will see her barding out somewhere. Whilst the judges went to decide which one of the bards were to win the title, compete. Someone said that the word competition came from the Latin word for us all to strive together for greatness. That was how the competition was started, and I felt, yeah, I really felt that actually, because there are some people who knew they weren't going to win, but they took the stage and took their time and had their moment, and for me that was just as touching as to see the winning entrance. So whilst the judges have gone down into the cellar of the assembly rooms to decide who they're going to chair, me and Pock did a few bits and bobs. Pock, I would love to have asked him for some of his something to read out or to create him. I'd love to have him on a podcast at some point, but wow, he's just so out there. I just don't feel I could do any of it justice. I didn't understand loads of it, but I definitely loved all of it. And then right at the end, he just got his rattle and kind of made, wild noises with his rattle, which I found profound. Anyway, so then I got up on stage feeling a little bit like a dinner lady, kind of in comparison. Like, I don't have anywhere near his sort of like cosmic vibe. But that's just the way it is, when you're getting up in front of people all the time, you have to just keep getting up and getting up and getting up and getting up and finding your way through. So I was kind of finding my way to connection through the story. I hadn't particularly decided which story to tell. I knew that I was halfway through a story in the trials, and I was going to finish that. So I did finish that, sort of probably quite clumsily, but it's just the wrong time of year. It was Orpheus in the underworld, and it was the wrong time of year to tell it. So I skedaddled and segued quickly into the story of Ceridwen's Cauldron. Because this great bard that I told you about earlier, Taliesin, he first appears in our written consciousness when Lady Charlotte Guest in the 12th century takes all these books of the Mabinogion. She called it the Mabinogion because each of the kind of sections ends. Here ends the Mabinog, something like that. Anyway, she brings them all together, and this book of Taliesin appears with all these different stories, and within these stories is the tale of Taliesin's birth. And at the end of when the bard is chaired, the current bard hands over to the new bard by reading them the Rhapsody of Taliesin. And I was just thinking, there's lots of words being bandied around tonight that if, got off the bus from Bristol or, came from out of town, I don't mean to say that there aren't a load of worthy druids living in Bristol, you would not have a clue, If I brought my mum there, she wouldn't have a clue what people were talking about. So I thought I'd throw a bone and tell this story. This is one of the stories in the Mabinogion, and it begins with Ceridwen, who's fantastic. She's the dark witch. She's a total witch. It's like when I imagine her, I just see she like is a cauldron. It's like her whole body is a cauldron, and she doesn't give a monkey's. I'm trying not to swear, Nicola, because I know that you found that difficult in previous podcasts. She doesn't give a about anything except power and magnificence and magic and beauty. She's well into it all. And so that's really, really surprising when she has a child who's like a bit of a potato, kind of doesn't seem to have a magical bone in his body. She's got this daughter who's shaping up nicely, and then she gets this boy, and he's just like, his first words, digger, and really sort of just like interested in cars and things, things with big wheels, and wants to just chop trees. And she's just like, no. She tries to teach him the seasons, the rhythms of the moon. She tries to teach him how to wash in seawater and let go into the sea. She teaches him how to root down into the earth and stretch up to the stars and allow the starlight to drizzle down for it. He's not getting any of it. It's just totally lost on him. So she thinks, need to do something about this. This bloke is absolutely, not going to have a good experience of life. Like, he is missing out. So she starts to create this brew. She starts and she stirs it up, and she knows that she wants to get some mugwort from the place where there's salt water in the freshwater meat, and the mugwort grows in between. So she goes over and she gets that. She knows she wants a bit of holy thorn. She knows she wants to go and get some mistletoe growing from the trees near Stonehenge, and all of this. And it gets to be a little bit of a thing of like keeping the thing stirring. So she calls Gwion back, who's like a boy from the village, and she's just like, you stir this. And she gives him a proper iron finger. She gives him her iron finger, and she says, you keep on stirring. You don't look what's inside. You don't ask any questions. You keep on stirring. So he does that. He's stirring, and she, every time she comes back, she does it again. She's like, if a single drop of this falls, the whole thing's ruined. This is my life's work. You better concentrate. So he's like a bit scared. So he's just stirring. So what happens when people are kind of, like that with you, then, your hand just shakes involuntarily, or you trip over, or, it's not conducive really to getting the best out of people. So one day he's stirring, and it's of no fault of his own. It's like it comes out, the hot liquid comes out, and it just lands on his finger, and he's like, 3 drops of it. The 3 drops of inspiration, the 3 rays of inspiration land on his finger. But he can't think about that sore finger for a moment, because he knows that Ceridwen has sniffed it out immediately, and she is hunting him. And he just moves with his body, and as he moves, his body just turns into a hare, and he's jumping and leaping and jumping and running and jumping and leaping and running. And she doesn't waste any time. She transforms herself into a greyhound, and she's like, fast, 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 fast. And she's nearly catching up with him. She's nearly got her teeth on his tail, and He just lifts himself up in the air and down into the river he goes. And he's a fish and he's swimming and swimming and swimming and swimming. And it's cold and it's frightening, but he doesn't care and can't even close his eyes. He's one of those fish that can't close his eyes. He's just like going. And she transforms herself into an otter and her teeth are sharp and she can smell him now with her otter nose, and she dives in and she's swimming. And she opens her mouth to catch him and he leaps up and up. He leaps into the sky and he's a bird and he opens himself up and he soars on the thermals and he's excited about being bird for a second, but he knows he just needs to keep flying. And then she turns herself into a falcon and she almost catches him and they are fighting in the sky and he plummets down and becomes a single grain of corn in a huge, great pile of corn. She turns herself into a hen and she pecks every last corn. And I like to think when she eats up Guion back that she can feel it, that there's a satisfied belch. But inside, that corn keeps growing. Inside the great belly of Cerridwen, that corn keeps growing. For 9 months, the baby grows. For 9 months, the baby grows and Cerridwen waits. But then it's birthed. The light of her own creation is birthed. And she can't kill it, and she knows that's not what is meant to be. So she takes a great black pouch and she puts the baby inside and she throws it into a stream for transformation. She throws it into a stream because she is Cerridwen of the cauldron bright, and she transforms and transforms and transforms. So she puts him into this bag of initiation and down the river he flows. And Elfin's there, far down the river with his dad. And Elfin's been terribly unlucky in his life, and his dad's feeling really sorry for him. And he knows that what he's done is he's put some golden coins far, far up the river. So they're going to come down. At any moment, they're going to come down and Elfin's going to catch them and he's going to be like, Dad, there's some golden coins. And he can say to him, you see, son, you are lucky. So he's waiting, his dad set it up and he's a bit tense. He's not quite sure it's going to work and maybe they've got stuck in a dam or whatever. But sure enough, Elfin's like, Dad, look! And out he pulls out of the river this black pouch. And it's just like he can see that it is witch-filled. And Elfin just wants to open it. He's like, don't open that, son. Don't open that, son. Don't open it. And he opens it and there's this golden light that comes out of the pouch. And he reaches in and there's this baby. And the baby's got a golden forehead. That's what Taliesin means, radiant brow. He's got a golden brow. Taliesin. And he says, look, Dad. And his dad is just disgusted. He can't anymore. He's just like, I've had enough of you, son. You just, we're standing, it's supposed to be golden coins and now you've got some kind of witch's baby. But Elfin, he says, chuck it back in the river. It'll be no good to you. His dad and Elfin's like, no, Dad, no. And he puts the little baby on his horse and takes him into the, back to the castle, back to their world, to their realm. And as they enter the gates of the castle, the baby starts to speak. And the baby speaks what has become known as Taliesin's Rhapsody. And here it is, some of it. Taliesin am I, primary chief bard to Elfin. Primary chief poet am I to Elfin. And my native country is the place of the summer stars. John the Divine called me Merlin, but all future kings shall call me Taliesin. I was 9 full months in the womb of Caradwyn. Before that I was Gwion, but now I am Taliesin. I was with my king in the heavens when Lucifer fell into the deepest hell. I carried the banner before Alexander. I know the names of the stars from north to south. I was in the ark with Noah and Alpha. I witnessed the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. I was in Africa before the building of Rome. I came here to the remnant of Troy. I was with the Lord in the manger of the ass. I upheld Moses through the water of the Jordan. I was at the cross with Mary Magdalene. I received the muse from Ceridwen's cauldron. I was a harping bard to Dion of Lochlin. I have gone hungry for the righteous one. I was in the larder in the land of the Trinity, and no one knows whether my body is flesh or fish. I was instructor to the whole universe, and I shall be until the judgment on the face of the earth. Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, Elfin was like, whoa, you're a baby and you say all that? And Taliesin says, I am better at answering questions than you are at asking them. Yeah, I mean, don't feel bad if your baby's first word, or indeed your first word, was, dog. Because that's obviously pretty unusual. But I wonder if we can declare ourselves like this. I wonder what it would be to declare ourselves like this. And I might, when I finish this podcast, to just write for a while, who I am and what I've witnessed. I was there. I was there. I was there. I think that's what I'm going to do. So that's pretty much, in a nutshell, what went on at the Bardic Finals on Sunday night. I thought that I would finish with one of the previous bards, the 8th chaired bard, Lisa Goodwin. She wrote this poem once to read at one of the finals, I believe. And it moved me. It moved me, yeah. So I'm reading it to you. And I've done a lot of reading of bits of poems. I'd love your feedback to find out if, I really didn't enjoy that podcast, Sarah. Or, I didn't mind that podcast where you read all those poems, Sarah. I'd love your feedback. I mean, I'm a fan of Frank Skinner's poetry podcast, but he sort of reads 4 lines at a time and then kind of talks about them. But yeah, I do enjoy that. So this is Lisa Goodwin's poem, Change. She sits on a street corner, begging for change. Wants to start again, rearrange the choices she made to make things this way. Picture this, a drizzly London street away from the glitz. She sits in a doorway just out of the rain, with the pain of longing and loneliness. It's quieter in this street, away from the grit of the rat race. Not so many fat cats with condescending faces. How did she get in this mess? 1,000 women she has been, once burned with a passion too bright too soon, it seems. She was beautiful. She was seen. Mate, you got any spare change? He spits on the floor. She can taste his disdain. She drags herself up. He walks away and mutters, Oi, wait a minute, mate. She staggers up to the gutter and tells it to him straight. From the cradle to the grave, the one thing that's constant is change. This crafty little paradox always remains the same. It's as old as these cliches and twice as deranged. So change. This blood and bone woman, this all alone woman, this more than maiden mother crone woman, this strong, robust, up against it all woman. Change. This beggar woman, this discerning woman, this yearning woman, this heavy-bellied, bearing down woman. Change. This big, busted, breastfeeding woman, this revolting, feisty, unpredictable woman. Change. This young woman, this old woman, this sensible, senseless woman, this domesticated, wild, straddling, aimless, babbling, big-hipped, soft-lipped woman. Change. This critical woman, this vital, broken, full of hope woman, this aching, forsaking, forgiving, living flesh woman. Change. This beaten woman, this glorious through and through woman, this inspirational, daydreaming, night-screaming woman. From the cradle to the grave, the one thing that's constant is change. This crafty little paradox always remains the same. It's as old as these cliches and twice as deranged. They stand on a street corner, in all their agony, glory and rage, the voice of 1,000 women and more. She of 1,000 names screaming for change, and in that moment, totally deranged, she feels everything within range. Look at her. They stare. She rearranges her hair, pulls her shoulders up to bear the weight of becoming all that she has ever been. It's time for change, the women whisper, and she turns to the darkness. This bright woman, this shadow woman, changes unseen. Just love that. Just love that. It's like she's changing all the time. We're changing all the time. We've been 1,000 things and will continue to be 1,000 things. And yeah, loving this spectrum of life that is evoked for me in that poem. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening, breathing with me. What do I say? This is Mooney's Mythic podcast. Please tell someone about it. Send me a message. Write a review. Just support me to build this beautiful boat that is sailing out there. And if you think it's sprung a leak, if you think there's anything that any places that you want me to go, or that you think I shouldn't go, love to hear it all. Yeah, just really love to hear it all. So thanks for listening. You can find this on, I've got a Substack. You can find it on Spotify, on Apple something or other, Apple Podcasts. Let's just finish by taking a deep breath together. Relaxing our shoulders, softening our thighs. Thank you.